Okay, so today we're diving into, get this, Harvard vegetable soup. And I have to admit, like when I first saw this, I thought, really, vegetable soup. But you send over some pretty fascinating sources that have me thinking this is going to be, well, way more interesting than it sounds.
It's a bit of a like culinary mystery almost. You'll see how it all ties together.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So we've got this viral lemonade post with a super quick recipe, your own notes on all the supposed health benefits, and even a Harvard Magazine article about soup. Like, where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with that lemonade recipe since that seems to be where like the whole thing took off.
Yeah, it's everywhere. What's the deal with it?
It's incredibly simple, like surprisingly so. Just 100 grams each of onion, pumpkin, cabbage, and carrot, all simmered in water for 20 minutes.
Okay, so far so soup-like.
Exactly. No seasoning required either. The post really highlights how quick and easy it is, perfect for busy people.
Right, right. The simplicity is definitely appealing. But then there are all these claims about it, like boosting immunity, aiding weight loss, all that.
Yeah, you name it. It's a lot.
And to be honest, like some of those claims in your notes sounded pretty tempting. But I mean, lemonade is, well, more known for, trendy food picks than like actual scientific research. Right?
Exactly. It's a great platform for discovering recipes and seeing what's trending, but we do need to be cautious about taking any health claims at face value. That's where critical thinking comes in.
Right, right. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. Is there actually a specific Harvard vegetable soup endorsed by the university? Did we miss some secret society of soup enthusiasts on campus or something?
Well, the Harvard Magazine article we have doesn't mention any official, like, Harvard soup or anything like that. But it does feature a Harvard alumna, Teresa Chen, who wrote a whole cookbook all about Cantonese slow-cooking soups.
So there is a Harvard connection. Okay, tell me more about this Teresa Chen. What's her story?
Well, she graduated from Harvard in 1964, and what's really fascinating is that she was actually inspired to write her cookbook after attending a lecture at Harvard by an anthropologist about the cultural significance of food. Talk about finding inspiration in unexpected places.
That's such a good point. So, okay, we might not have a specific Harvard vegetable soup, but we do have this intriguing link to a Harvard-educated soup expert through her cookbook. That's pretty cool.
Definitely adds another layer to this whole thing.
It does. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and dive into those health benefits everyone's talking about. Your notes mention a whole list of potential advantages. What are we looking at here?
Oh, there's boosting immunity, anti-inflammatory properties, aiding digestion, helping with weight loss, providing vitamins and fiber.
Right.
The list goes on.
Wow, that's quite the list. Sounds pretty impressive.
It is, it is.
So there's got to be some truth to these claims, right? I mean, at the end of the day, vegetables are good for you.
Oh, absolutely. Soup can be incredibly healthy, but it's not, a magic cure-all. Let's break it down a bit.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So the fiber from vegetables, that definitely aids digestion, no doubt about that. And vegetable soups are packed with vitamins and minerals, although the exact amounts do vary depending on the specific ingredients and how you cook them, of course. For example, carrots are rich in beta-carotene, which your body converts to vitamin A, important for eye health. And onions contain antioxidants, which can help protect your cells from damage.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So what about that 43% immunity boost claim from the Lemonade post? That's a very specific number. Where did that even come from?
That's where we need to be a bit more cautious. While some ingredients in vegetable soup might support immune function, there's no scientific evidence to support such a dramatic increase in immunity just from this specific soup. It's a classic example of why we need to evaluate information critically and look for credible sources, even when something sounds, well, tempting.
Right. So maybe not a magic potion, but still potentially very healthy. It seems like with soup, you really are what you eat.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to the really exciting part, making a delicious and hopefully nutritious vegetable soup. Our sources actually offer some fantastic insights into maximizing flavor and incorporating those healthy ingredients.
Okay, so how do we take this basic Harvard recipe and elevate it? I'm thinking flavor A&D nutrition, of course.
Well, the goal is to help you enhance that base recipe, not necessarily replace it entirely. And we know that, everyone has different levels of cooking experience, so we'll be touching on various techniques.
Perfect.
First up is ingredient selection. Onions, carrots, and celery, those are your classic flavor foundation. And for those who prefer a milder flavor, shallots or leeks make great substitutes for onions.
Makes sense. What are your thoughts on using vegetable scraps? Seems like a good way to minimize waste, right?
Absolutely. Using scraps like onion peels and carrot tops not only reduces waste, but it can actually add depth of flavor to your broth. It's a win-win.
Love that. Okay, I see in my notes potatoes, tomatoes, zucchini. There are so many options. Are there any ingredients we should avoid?
While you can add a variety of vegetables, be mindful of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, or kale.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Well, they contain sulfur compounds, which can release during cooking and create a slightly bitter flavor in the broth. It's not that you can't use them at all, just be careful with the quantity.
Got it. So maybe add those towards the end of cooking, if at all. I'm also thinking mushrooms for that umami boost, and ginger, garlic, maybe even apples or pears for a touch of sweetness.
You've got it. And remember, a little goes a long way. Think of it like building a flavor profile, adding layers of complexity.
Okay, so we've got our ingredients. Now, what about cooking techniques? I know there's got to be more to it than just throwing everything in a pot.
You're absolutely right. One key technique is sautéing those aromatics, the onions, garlic, whatever you're using, before adding the other ingredients. This helps to really develop their flavors and creates a more complex base for your soup.
Oh, that's a good tip. I've also heard there's some debate about whether to start with cold or hot water for soup. What's your take on that?
Ooh, that's one of those, like, age-old culinary debates. Some believe cold water extracts flavors more gently, while others argue that hot water just speeds up the cooking process. Honestly, both approaches have their merits.
Yeah, that's true.
I personally tend to lean towards starting with cold water for a richer broth, but ultimately it comes down to personal preference and, well, time constraints.
Yeah, I tend to start with cold water too. It just, I don't know, feels more intuitive.
hmm
But I also love my pressure cooker for saving time. Is that a good option for soup?
Absolutely. A pressure cooker can significantly reduce cooking time while still yielding a flavorful and nutritious soup. It's a great tool for, well, for anyone who wants a quick and easy meal.
We may need to do a whole deep dive on pressure cooking sometime.
Yeah.
But for now, back to our soup. Any other tips for maximizing flavor?
One secret weapon that can make a huge GE difference is acid. Like a splash of lemon juice, vinegar, even wine can really brighten and balance the flavors, especially if you have some sweetness from vegetables like carrots or pumpkin. That touch of acidity can really make it sing.
Oh, you mean like how balsamic vinegar goes so well with tomato soup? I'm starting to see the possibilities here.
Exactly. Think about red wine for lentil soup or a squeeze of lemon for a creamy vegetable broth. Even a small amount can make a world of difference. And don't forget fresh herbs added at the end for both flavor and visual appeal.
Oh, good point. My notes also mention spices. Any thoughts on that?
Spices can definitely add depth and complexity, but with vegetable soup, it's important not to go overboard. A little goes a long way. You really want the flavors of the vegetables to shine through.
Right, right. So we've covered ingredients, cooking techniques, the power of acid. It's amazing how much there is to say about something as simple as vegetable soup.
Right. It's like a culinary blank canvas. You can really tailor it to your own tastes and preferences.
Before we move on, is there anything that's stood out to you so far? Any surprises or aha moments?
You know what's really struck me is how this seemingly simple recipe has led us down so many interesting paths, from social media trends to the cultural significance of food to the science behind flavor. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. I think that's one of the things that makes these deep dives so fun. We never know where they're going to take us.
Exactly.
I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical about diving into, Harvard vegetable soup at first.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm so glad we did.
Me too.
And think about all the practical takeaways we've uncovered already. We've debunked the myth of the official Harvard soup, explored the nuances of those health claims, and learned some pretty valuable cooking techniques.
It's true. It's packed with useful information.
For me, the biggest takeaway is that delicious and nutritious food doesn't have to be complicated. We can all make amazing soup with a little knowledge and creativity.
Couldn't agree more. And it's something we can all benefit from, regardless of our culinary skills or whatever. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I think we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
I like that.
Yeah. Imagine if you were to create your version of Harvard vegetable soup. What ingredients would you choose? What techniques would you use? And Like, most importantly, what would make it uniquely yours?
That's a great question. I mean, we'd love to hear about your culinary adventures, so feel free to, like, share your creations with us.
Yeah, we've given you the tools and inspiration. Now it's your turn to get creative.
It's true.
And, that's what we love about food. It's a constant source of discovery and connection.
It's true. This whole deep dive has been a good reminder that even something as, like, seemingly basic as vegetable soup can be a gateway to all sorts of fascinating topics.
Right. Zoom in.
We've explored history, culture, nutrition, even a bit of, like, social media analysis,
Oh, yeah.
and we've learned some valuable lessons along the way.
For sure. We've learned to question assumptions, to look for evidence, and to, appreciate the power of simplicity.
Yeah.
And we've been reminded that even small changes can make a big difference.
Oh, I love that.
Whether it's, a splash of vinegar in our soup or a new perspective on the world.
Beautifully said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Harvard vegetable soup, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep sharing your discoveries.
Yeah, keep cooking.
Who knows what delicious and insightful adventures await? Happy cooking. I love that. That idea of it being like a culinary blank canvas, it reminds me of how Teresa Chen, in her cookbook, she really emphasized intuition, like
Oh.
looking at what's in the pot, not just the clock when you're cooking.
It's so true. It's about engaging all your senses, being present in the process. You can follow a recipe, but you can also trust your instincts, adjust the seasoning, add a pinch of this or that. It's like creating your own culinary masterpiece.
And speaking of masterpieces, what about that lemonade recipe? Any final thoughts on that? It's sparked so much discussion, it feels like.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's a great example of how something so simple can really capture people's imaginations. It speaks to our desire for quick, healthy meals. And even though, yeah, the health claims might be a bit overblown, the underlying idea of a nutrient-packed vegetable soup, that's a good one.
It's definitely got me thinking more about incorporating more vegetables into my diet, that's for sure. I might not be drinking this specific soup for 2 weeks straight, but I'm definitely inspired to get a little more creative in the kitchen.
That's what we hope for with these deep dives. To spark curiosity, encourage exploration, and maybe even a little culinary adventure.
Well, I know I've learned a lot today. Who knew Harvard vegetable soup could be so multifaceted?
Right. And who knows, maybe someday we'll be reading about your soup creations in Harvard Magazine.
Huh. From podcast host to soup celebrity. Now, that's a deep dive I'd love to take. But in all seriousness, I think this has been a good reminder that we can find fascination and knowledge in the most unexpected places. Even a simple bowl of soup can be a gateway to a world of discovery.
Absolutely. So go forth, experiment, create, and don't be afraid to share your culinary adventures with the world.
Yes.
You never know who you might inspire.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of Harvard vegetable soup. We hope you've enjoyed the journey. And until next time, happy cooking.